let's get this party started. I am overall incredibly flattered. I feel even a little nervous, but I can feel chemistry through Zoom because there's nothing like the type 1 community or diabetes community within itself. I am inspired to do this presentation and hopefully guide you on an easier way to reach your goals. For kicks, I'm a type 1, actually for only 30 years. Lindsay's given me an extra year as she helped me make this slide, but for 30 years. And I'm currently on a Dexcom and an Omnipod insulin pump. I just got back on the Omnipod after 5 years of a pump break, but I felt like it was time to transition. I love to hop back and forth. All in all, after living in Australia for 2 years in 2010, I opened my business in 2012, where I help busy women improve their blood sugar and hormones using nutrition strategies, functional labs, and targeted vitamins. So the presentation I'm speaking on today is the connection between, actually, I need to move my chat because it's covering so much of my PowerPoint. There we go. The connection between gut health and blood sugar response. But all in all, how many presents does an 8-year-old get when she's diagnosed with type 1 diabetes on her birthday? A lot. I know most of you likely have a type 1 story too, and don't do the math, but as someone with type 1 for 30 years, I've made many mistakes, but I believe as a dietitian and on my journey thus far, it has given me a magnifying glass with the technology on my body, showing me what foods, diet, and lifestyle work for my gut and biochemistry. But above all, push me to challenge conventional advice we're being told. As a dietitian in private practice, I see a lot of what works overall for wellness and better diabetes management. And perhaps there's more we could know to better our journey. I'm driven to weave holistic nutrition into the diabetes care model, and that all begins in the gut. We're going to go much deeper than the diet, carb count, and calorie conversation. I'm going to offer you successful strategies to inspire you to help you live a full life with less effort on blood sugar control. Let's see if I can. So to warm us up today on some research, I am going to talk about a study that was actually done on non-diabetics. No need to read the small fine print here. I have it there in case anyone wants to reference it. Also, I have my email at the end if you'd like a copy of my slides. But this was a study actually quite recent. In 2021, this study was published in the Journal of Nature Metabolism, and it distinguished why some people struggle to lose weight, even on a calorie-controlled diet. Research showed that people who experience big dips in their blood sugar levels, as shown with CGM, so non-diabetics are wearing CGMs, which is kind of cool, for several hours after eating, they end up feeling hungrier and consuming hundreds of more calories during the day than others. These big dippers had a 9% increase in hunger. They waited a half an hour less on average before their next meal than the little dippers, even though they ate the exact same first breakfast. The big dippers overall for the day consumed about 300 more calories, which could potentially turn into a 20-pound weight gain over a year. And even though these diets were controlled diets, this was a study done on non-diabetics. There's quite diverse blood sugar experiences. These individuals aren't in charge of their pancreas like us, but there were still varying responses. I beg to ask the question, why? The researchers shared choosing foods that work together with your unique biology and gut could help people feel fuller for longer and eat less overall. So I shared this study today just to kind of eye open, like there's blood sugar fluctuations in non-diabetics, but also there's big variables of what's influencing that. Of course, yes, we know stress. My blood sugar is a little high right now. I'm a little nervous. Yes, movement. Yes, hydration, medication, and so forth. But our gut biome is so important to overall health. All disease begins in the gut. But in the last 10 years in my practice, I really hyper-focused on nurturing gut health in my clientele, but also how to better streamline blood sugar control by eating foods that work best for them. Overall, in 2009, when I lived in Chicago, that's how I had met Lindsay. I feel like she's almost a mentor to me. She brought me into Diabetes Sisters, and here she is again, helping me show up with you guys today. In 2009, I attended a conference called Food is Medicine, and this weekend forever changed my life, my diabetes management, and my philosophy as a dietitian. And to step back for a moment before I share a story that going to a brilliant conference and the benefit of me walking away educated. Long story short, I was in my early 20s and I was broke. I didn't have very much money. I was fresh out of grad school and I was in my first career. But the cost of the conference was down in Florida. I saw we have some people from Florida and Miami, and it just wasn't within my budget. So what I called the conference and I asked to be a volunteer, and they cut me a break on the ticket price. And I was the individual who cut the speakers off at 10 minutes and put up a sign at 5 minutes left and then told them when it was over. So they knew my face, which was kind of cool. But this is so funny because it's quite against my character, but it changed my life. Everything happens for a reason, right? So since I was a volunteer, I got to go to the participant dinners, and I talked to these physicians, those who were giving the presentations. And I said, listen, I've been type 1 diabetic since second grade. I've been a dietitian for 3 years, so I clearly know everything. I'm laughing. And I couldn't budge my A1C. And I said, what advice can you give me? I don't understand what I could be doing differently. And the common response was strip gluten from your diet. And I thought they were bananas. I told them that's for the birds. I'm already focusing on so much of sugar in my food, my carb counts, my medications, my workouts, and so forth. But I thought, what do I have to lose? So I went back to Chicago after this conference, and I went for it. I went gluten-free. And for the first time, I never realized I could feel so good. For the first time, I remember calling my mom and be like, I didn't understand this is how people had energy. I never knew this was the norm. I walked away from that conference knowing, one, eat more real food than not, and not to read too much into health claims that are on a label. Number two, to be aware that there are some politics in nutrition advice, including the dietary guidelines. And three, to chase results. So this kind of changed my philosophy overall. So overall, our gut is as unique as our fingerprint. Yes, I just mentioned that I went gluten-free in 2009, but I don't think what I do is what everyone needs to do. You know, what is my medicine can be someone's poison. What works for someone else can be vice versa. Overall, the role of the microbiome in type 1 diabetes is a largely uncharted terrain, but of certain interest. Type 1 diabetes is a multifactorial autoimmune disease mediated by genetics, epigenetics, and environmental factors. Significant composition of the gut microbiome of the gut have been found in subjects with clinical or preclinical type 1 diabetes. Features that are most often linked to type 1 include decreased gut bacteria diversity, the overall abundance of strains in the gut of bacteria, and altered metabolic production. Overall, how we choose to eat should very much be personalized. You know, there's the dietary guidelines, there's the American Diabetes recommendations, but we need to, again, chase results and not solely recommendations. There are real food diets. I wrote a book in 2015 when my second child was born, and it was on the paleo diet. And while I appreciate the paleo diet, I don't think it's a strict program we should all follow. But I think there's this true inspiration behind it that we should eat as close to the farm as possible. Overall, another study here, which is really looked into, again, the blood sugar response as it relates to the gut. The question is, which is more likely to raise someone's blood sugar level, sushi or ice cream? According to research from this institute, which was reported in 2015 from the Journal of Cell, the answer varies from one person to another, similar to the first study I shared in today's talk. The study, which continuously monitored blood sugar levels in 800 people for a week, revealed that the body response to all foods was highly individualized. Overall, the researchers assessed the response of different people to more than 46,000 meals with the CGM with 100 different food ingredients, showed blood sugar responses were across the board. On this note, the researchers looked at 100 different foods in the study, although 46,000 different meals. I just wanted to point out food for thought that on average, a weekly basis, we eat the same 11 foods. That's just an average. And I challenge everyone watching today or listening to the recording to increase that number. As someone with type 1 diabetes, and I know individuals watching today might have type 2 or prediabetes or just interest in diabetes, but one thing that we are at a higher potential of is having a decreased diversity of gut bacteria in our gut. And we want diversity of gut bacteria. And we get that by eating a diverse diet. So a lot of my clients eat the same breakfast, lunch, and then rotate dinner around. Do your best to, every time you grocery shop, to try something new. Although it's very convenient, it's very helpful to know exactly how much insulin to cover a meal if you repeat it from day to day. But try to mix things up as best you can, because it'll help set you up. I'm putting the cart before the horse a tad bit, as towards the end of this presentation, I have other suggestions, but I just thought that was one neat thing to point out here. Overall, some people spike more from cantaloupe than cookies, and vice versa. And it comes down to bacteria. It comes down to our individual gut bacteria. And for example, those who are listening, and I know we'll have a conversation at the end of today's talk, do you have any foods just spike your blood sugar? Me personally, it's kind of an odd food, but I love the taste of Japanese sweet potatoes. They're the sweet potatoes that are purple and then yellow on the inside. If you slice them in cylinders and bake them, it's almost like a doughy bread. I love them, but they spike my blood sugar carb count so much more than an equal carb count to white potatoes or traditional yams. But knowing what foods spike us can help us be our own detective, can help us determine what our body likes and doesn't. A new crop of digital health companies as well in the non-type 1 space are using CGMs, the device from Abbott, the Libre. A company, NutriSense, is branding that product for non-type type 1 diabetics to biohack their health, to improve their lifestyle. So I actually have 2 clients who have NutriSense's CGM, and it helps them determine if they're sleeping adequately, if when they are in back-to-back meetings, how does that affect their blood sugar and therefore their cravings and therefore their impulses and therefore their food. But blood sugar is everything. And, a big tool for health is a pedometer. But I think in the next decade to come, more and more people are going to have a CGM. I thought I would share that as well, as I find it kind of interesting here. But as I kind of just dumped a lot of gut words, bacteria, that's somewhat not common to understand, I want to reiterate to keep things simple. We are at a disadvantage of having a leaky gut with an autoimmune disease. We're at a disadvantage of potentially having not enough diversity, and therefore having more spiked blood sugars from food. But there's a lot we can do. And having type 1 diabetes, I think not only does it help us highlight how to be a healthier individual, but it highlights and helps others around us. I think my children are eating better because I'm type 1 diabetic. My husband surely is. And I'm sure you could relate to the same. Overall, I want to mention, and I've said this saying, I say it a lot, is eat as close to the farm as possible, but also enjoy pleasures. Don't have guilt if you're eating something out of a package. We're human, we're busy, we have a lot of pressure, and we live in a fast-paced world. It's going to happen, but if you have the choice, try to get as close to the farm as possible and choose food historically, not calorically. I'll have clients and they'll say, I'm going to choose these wheat thins because they're lower in calories compared to the avocado. There's a big calorie difference, but how the body recognizes those foods is drastically different. And how the body may respond or someone tolerate it can also be different. So choose food historically, not calorically. And watch for blood sugar trends. I talked about my Japanese sweet potato that I stay away from. Also, I do great on sprouted oats, but I do horrible on rice. Granted, rice is also very low in fiber, but I just know my foods and I don't feel restricted from them. I just choose foods that help me feel good, and I'm motivated to do it that way. Overall. So these next few slides, I'm just going to go through some advice on how to support your gut health, how to examine how your gut may be serving you, and how to build a better plate for better blood sugar control. I love food puns. I'm pretty active on social media, specifically Instagram. And whenever I have a food pun, I try to share it as much as I can. But the slide here I want to challenge you is, how much more real food can you eat in your typical meals? Right now I had a client the other day and I was like, do you know how much, what percentage of real food you eat compared to something out of a package? And he was like, I really I really have no idea. He's like, let's just think about it. He's like, for breakfast, I ate full fat yogurt with some nuts and berries. And I'm like, fantastic. 100%. There we go. Granted, yogurt, it can be coming out of a package, but I'm going to call that a whole food. And then he goes, and then for my lunch, I had an English muffin with salami. He's like, that's probably not as much whole real food. And I said, no, but I'm not going to say remodel that lunch. Let's just see what we can do good, better, best. I was like, what if you layered on some red onion and some tomato and some lettuce and then had a side of fermented pickles? You're moving that to a much better option. And I challenge you, what can you do slightly different? I was laughing, for those who didn't hop on right away, I was one of the first. And Lindsay came on and she was talking about a food demo that happened Wednesday night. And they put cauliflower in the smoothie. And this morning, I made my son oats and I snuck in some protein powder. And he was like, Mom, what did you do to this? It's so different. So we can get sneaky on ourselves or sneaky for other individuals to help balance out meals. But if we were in a live audience today, I would say, what did you have for a meal today? And how can you tweak that by 1% to be better? A few examples I have here is maybe you typically grab a muffin from the coffee shop for breakfast. Could you maybe do overnight oats instead? Maybe you have an egg sandwich for your first meal of the day. And granted, these are a lot of breakfast options. So hopefully I can inspire you in some shape or form for other meals. But maybe that egg sandwich could be a veggie omelet. Again, the body food is messengers to the body. And if the closer it is in Mother Nature, the better it can read the nutrients that are available and the messages from the food. So a scramble could be better than the egg sandwich. I'm guessing not many of us are drinking juice, as we clearly know the impact of that, but moving from a juice in the morning to a smoothie can be a big difference. And the world of pasta, I brought up pasta because as a mother, I need some fast meals in my life, and we eat pasta probably twice a week. But I do pair that with a good protein, and I try to pair it with some fiber from vegetables, but there's really good pasta options out there. I made a bolognese last week, and I opened up a can of hemp hearts. They're these hearts of palm noodles that are so delicious. Carbs are probably 10 grams, but it's an abundance of fiber. Our gut loves fiber. Fiber feeds the gut bacteria and help them grow more abundantly. With sandwiches, can you swap bread for a wrap, for a lettuce wrap? There's a lot of things maybe we can tweak to overall improve the content of whole real food we're eating in our diet. If there's one thing from this slide I'm inspired to mention, if you're to pull one thing out of your diet, again, I'm not about restriction, I'm about eating foods that work for you. But I would encourage to avoid things like man-made oils, like margarine, like sunflower oil, like canola oil, like vegetable oil. Although the label will be favorable in monounsaturated fat and polyunsaturated fat, those fats are so high in omega-6s. And what you need to know from this is it's very inflammatory to the body. So if you can reduce inflammation in your body with your food, one huge effort would be just to remove man-made oils from your diet. And the sneakiest places for that exist in margarine, but also salad dressings. So have a look at what salad dressings you most typically use and modify the next time you purchase them. The next slide, I already kind of talked about the benefits of fiber feeding our gut bacteria, but on average, Americans eat about 10 grams of fiber a day. Maybe with our diabetes, we've always had emphasis of eating well. Maybe we're above that average, hopefully, but I want to inspire you to try to make a difference with the foods you choose. Great sources of fiber, something I kick my day off with every day is I do a vegetarian protein powder I like a lot because it mixes well. And I do a scoop or a tablespoon of hemp hearts and a tablespoon of chia seeds. And it's almost like a chia pudding. This first meal of the day, and then I also put a spoonful of sun butter in there to melt. It's really yummy and comforting in very cold weathers. This meal, my first meal of the day, has over 15 grams of fiber. So chia seeds make it very easy. Flax seeds, I like flackers. There's these crackers you could buy from Whole Foods or online. I like the store Thrive Market. I place a lot of pantry items from Thrive Market. It's an online store like Costco, but it has a discount membership. It has a lot of products like Whole Foods, but has a discount like Costco because there's a membership involved. But I get crackers called flackers from there. They're good. But try to bump up fiber in your diet overall. Overall, our gut, our digestive cells turn over every 6 days, and our gut bacteria can change by the season, by the week, and by the meal. So when we make big changes with our nutrition, they are often quickly seen, which is very inspiring. Let's see here. There's many kinds of fiber. I'm sure you've heard of soluble fibers, which is kind of like the beans, oats, bananas, apples. And then there's insoluble fibers. But in this insoluble fiber family is a specific fiber that's very beneficial to those with insulin resistance or diabetes. It's called resistant starch. Again, if I was on stage, I'd be like, how many people have heard of resistant starch? Resistant starch, let's see, I have some research or stats to share. Resistant starch should be emphasized as it benefits wellness at its core for gut health, but also insulin sensitivities, where most foods feed only 10% of our gut cells. Fermented fibers and resistant starches feed our gut bacteria 90%. So how do we source resistant starch in our diet? One way, I don't know if you've ever heard this, but if you cook potatoes, I prefer to boil them because it has a lesser impact on blood sugar. But if I'm cooking white potatoes, if you cook them and then cool them and then heat them up slightly, there's going to be an increase in resistant starch. Same thing with oats. If you do overnight oats and then heat them up in the morning, it's going to have an increase in resistant starch and favor your post-meal blood sugar better. The pastas, if it's a pasta made from lentils or beans or so forth, you can also create some resistant starch by cooking and cooling. If that's a new concept to you, maybe make a little note and just Google resistant starch and blood sugar, and you can find an easy way to increase it in your diet. I do like recommending my clients to have smoothies from occasion, or if they just need a quick, healthy, whole real meal. And I might suggest to use a fiber powder that has resistant starch in it. There's a product from Designs for Health. It's called Paleo RS. That's a really good one. Overall study I'm going to share is in 2019, children with type 1 diabetes who received a 3-month dose of prebiotics. Probiotics are more the fermented foods. Prebiotics are more like fiber from onion, artichoke, from vegetables. So children with type 1 diabetes who received a 3-month dose of prebiotics had higher levels of beneficial gut bacteria, improved intestinal permeability. So our intestines is like a hose, and anyone with an autoimmune disease, including type 1 diabetes, have some level of a leaky gut. So just increasing your fiber, prebiotics and probiotics, you can make that a more solid, have better integrity. So I'm getting on little tangents here. So to reiterate, 3 weeks of prebiotics, gut bacteria was better, improved intestinal permeability, decreased C-peptide, and this is a lab of inflammation, compared to children who received a placebo. So food's powerful. Nutrition is medicine, and it can either work for us or against us. But I inspire you to just tune in what feels good when you build your plate, when you eat. Watch what spikes your blood sugar more than another. I have one note here. I lived in Australia, as I mentioned, for 2 years. And at the end of that trip, unfortunately, an incident happened where I broke my jaw. And although it was a hard situation, there's such a beautiful silver lining of it. We were deciding whether or not to renew our visa to stay there long term or not. And we were on the train to stay. And that happened to me. And I said, hard no. I want to move back to America. I want to open my business and I want to have children. And at the same time, opening my business, I was like, I'm so inspired to just take the best care of myself. And I thought, as a type 1 diabetic dietitian, the answer to that for me was eating very low carb. So I ate very low carb, less than 50 grams of carbs a day. And I think, low carb can work well for people with diabetes, for sure. Moderate carb, I think, is beautiful. High carb, I think it can work well too, but it just depends on everyone. But nonetheless, I focused on keeping my carbs below 50 grams a day, which is not a lot. A banana has 30 grams. We don't know how to carb count. I'm like acting like we don't. And after doing that for years, I did it for years, I actually hurt my gut bacteria. I do functional tests and I did a stool test on myself, and I was shocked at the low diversity of gut bacteria I had. And I starved off my good gut bugs because I was not feeding it fiber. So learn from my mistakes. Enjoy fiber-rich foods, which mainly means produce, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, and beans. And yeah, overall, I tell clients, try to have 2 cups of greens a day. There's so many good micronutrients in there. There's good fiber, and have at least 1 cup of cooked vegetables. Vegetables, as we know, are really gentle on blood sugars, and they're just nutrient powerhouses overall. The next slide here, this is just a picture of my website, but I have a tab of free downloads. And I keep telling everyone to tune in on how you make you feel. And I really love using this food log handout. So if you need something more than pen and paper to kind of be your own detective, head there and download that document. But also I wanted to use this slide as an opportunity to reiterate how we tolerate food doesn't always show up in just blood sugar spikes or digestion. A lot of symptoms could be poor sleep, insomnia, anxiety, mood swings, skin issues, asthma, brain fog. So our gut is our second brain, hence how it can affect our mood. But our tolerance to food can affect a lot more than just how we go to the bathroom every day or not go. My next slide here is, I love saying sleep is the secret sauce to health. And one of my favorite studies to reference on this note, in any presentation I may be giving, is it was a study done in Chicago. It was a 2012 study done on individuals of males in their young 20s. So they are hormonally the healthiest they will ever be potentially. And not many variabilities going on with their age and hormones. So and they were put in a sleep lab for 8 nights. The first 4 nights, they slept adequately. They were giving a calorie controlled healthy diet throughout the program. They were getting labs and drawings done every single day. So the first 4 nights, they slept adequately. The last 4 nights, they were sleep deprived to 4.5 hours. On that 4th day, when they woke up as type 2 diabetics. When we don't sleep, we increase insulin resistance in our body. Even though I have type 1 diabetes, which is an autoimmune disease, I still ride a spectrum of insulin resistance. So we need to be aware of that as well. And sleep is so important. If you can't increase the quantity of your sleep, can you increase the quality? Some things I always mention is your room dark enough? Is your room cold enough? I'm guessing it is because it's freezing out right now. It's a little harder to make a room chilly enough in the summer sometimes. But an ideal temperature for the bedroom, you guys might cringe, is close to 65 degrees. That cooler temp will give us a deeper quality of sleep. I lived in Chicago in Lincoln Park for 10 years, and now it's just part of my ritual, but I sleep with an eye mask, earplugs, a fan. It's kind of my ritual, but it helps me with the quality. So ask yourself, do you sleep enough? Do you need a bedtime ritual? Kids aren't the only ones that need it. And is the quality superb? I also like the use of magnesium glycinate. There's quite a few vitamins or forms of magnesium. Magnesium citrate with a C, magnesium citrate is good for constipation. It'll make you go to the bathroom. But if you want to target sleep, I recommend magnesium glycinate. Magnesium glycinate will also help your muscles relax, but also help the depth of your sleep because it helps with mental health, helps our brain feel more calm and more. So all in all, sleep is a secret sauce of your health. If you are sleep deprived, know you might have to adjust some things during your day to better control blood sugar. As I mentioned, I have 2 children. They were both 2 under 2, and I opened my business, and my husband traveled all the time. To say the least, there are many nights I didn't sleep well, but if I knew I was up more than twice, I'd probably have to kick up my insulin pump 30% the next day. So don't be afraid to be bold with your insulin when you're sleep deprived. It's a very strong variable in our control. It also plays a big role in gut health. So if I'm trying to help people heal from food sensitivities or just indigestion, sleep is a core pillar. Nutrition can't come before sleep. So hopefully you feel inspired for that. And overall, try to go to bed by 10. In Chinese medicine, they say the liver regenerates or does most of its work from 11 to 2 a.m. So try to not just get the quantity from midnight to 8 a.m., but try to really overlap with sunlight overall. Something here I want to check my time. I'm coming close to up to my time, but snacking, there's a better way to snack. No naked carbs. I think we all know this probably from personal experimentation, but if I were to eat a banana by itself compared to a banana with some nut butter, the impact on my blood sugar control would be very different. Spiked blood sugars hurt the gut. Also, poor gut health hurt blood sugar. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg, and just do the best you can. Also, it's ideal to eat with the sun. So when the sun's up, try to focus on that time of the day to consume food. And even in the evening, if you want something, try to delay to the next day to enjoy whatever that may be, because it works better for your hormones. It works better for blood sugar control, and it works better for your gut. 3 meals also is better during the day versus 6. And one reason why is because every time I eat a meal, I had breakfast today, 90 minutes to 120 minutes later, there's a process called the migrating motor complex that's stimulated. The migrating motor complex is basically like a cleaning system that goes through our body, helps pick up any scraps or any of those turned over digestive cells, and helps our digestion overall be more efficient. If we're grazing or eating about every hour and a half or every 2 hours, that cleaning system never goes, and our digestion, our gut integrity is impaired. And all in all, one thing we all don't do enough is make sure you chew your food. I know that doesn't really relate to snacking, but it's just something else I want to mention. I already got into the benefits of eating with the sun, but there's a study I wanted to share here. Is overall eating a late dinner worsens glucose tolerance for blood sugar and reduces the amount of fat burned. On average, the peak blood sugar level after a late dinner is about 18% higher, and the amount of fat burned overnight decreases about by 10% compared to eating the exact same meal earlier. And maybe you guys have noticed this too. If you eat the same meal and soccer practice runs late or something, you will need more insulin to cover that, or you will wake up with a higher fasting. And it's because not just what you eat, but when. They're both honestly equally as important. What, when, and how we eat are what teaches us the art of eating well. Overall, if you do eat late, it happens. I understand. Try to just make it lighter and try to make it something that's gentler on the system. And maybe that's a scramble, a smoothie, or a soup. Overall, research shows prolonged delayed eating from noon to 11 p.m. compared to eating during daylight hours can increase weight, insulin, cholesterol, and negatively affect fat burn and hormonal markers implicated by heart disease, diabetes, and other health problems. So intermittent fasting is trendy to an extent, I think in a good way, but eating in a smaller window. I know I referenced noon to 11. A lot of people say, oh, I try to eat in an 8-hour window. The 16-8 thing's trendy. I think that's good for some people. For a cycling female, I think just eating in a 12 to 10-hour window is more ideal. Smaller is not better. Try a time restricted window on, like it's an outfit, and see how it feels, and see what works best for you. I couldn't fail to mention, I know I'm a dietitian, I'm talking about holistic nutrition, but happiness has such an impact on our overall health. It's been a few interesting years, that's for sure. And even today, the average adult has the anxiety level of a psychiatric patient of the 1950s. I've given you a lot of advice, a lot of tips today, but don't allow it to be a lot of pressure to create change on all the things. Just pick one thing and try to move 1% at a time. Sometimes wellness isn't realizing the weight we have to lose is on our body. Give yourself permission to do nothing, to not worry, to not produce, and just be. I'm sure many of us are busy adults here. I know we're quite a group of athletes and more. Our sports might be our hobby, but if we don't have one, try to spend some time and realize what really brings you joy. On my first slide, it was a picture of myself on my paddleboard. And in 2019, 2020, I really realized how much zen being by myself on the water on a paddleboard really brings me. So I try to carve that out. I try to make space for that happiness. Overall, happier people need to multitask 30% less. And could you imagine having 30% more time in your day? So as you improve your overall nutrition, don't forget to make sure happiness and pleasure is on the table as well. So in summary, a few things to overall help your gut health is keep a food diary. Watch for trends and course correct from day to day. There are good targeted supplements to improve gut health. I talked about the benefit of fiber and probiotics. Other supplements I really like to use with type 1 individuals is Lglutamine, especially those who are athletes, because if we overtrain or train hard, that also can hurt the gut. But Lglutamine is very good. It acts like Neosporin to the gut lining. It also prevents cravings. When we have strong cravings, it's harder to control our blood sugar. So that's a really good one as well. Hydrate. On my free download site, I have a really fun calendar. It kind of makes hydrating fun. Try to attack your goals with joy and as if it's a game in a fun way. Eat more real food than not. Love food that loves you back. Try to eat with the sun and space out your meals. Take deep breaths. When we are busy or stressed, we shallow breathe all the time. And it tells our body like, hey, be on guard. It'll bring up our cortisol, which is also what makes our blood sugars higher. But make sure you're taking deep breaths so you can tell the brain can't see. Tell the brain, hey, everything's fine, calm down. And don't be afraid to ask for help. The type 1 community is so awesome, from social media to amazing groups like DTC and so much more. All in all, big journeys start with small steps, and make sure you don't overwhelm yourself with all the great information that I'm sure to see today. And the top 5 things that I always focus on improving blood sugar control is 1, gut health. 2, sleep. It's the secret sauce. 3, activity. It sounds like a lot of people are on their Peloton and running and so forth, but I love how there's 15 minutes between each presentation today, because if we sit for 60 minutes, even as a non-diabetic or a type 1 diabetic, we build that insulin resistance. When we choose foods, make sure they're not naked carbs, and try to eat with the sun. Overall, simplify, keep things simple, keep things fun, and focus on 1% of change. What we do doesn't happen in a day. When we improve, it happens daily. I'd love to stay connected. If you want a copy of these slides, you can email me, and let's take some questions.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go back to the when you had discussed the non-made, like non-man-made oils.
Yeah.
Like good choices as far as some examples of that, and then along the same lines, addressing thoughts around the product Earth Balance.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So the question is, why avoid man-made oils?
I think maybe examples.
Okay. So one tricky thing, especially, is if we eat out, a lot of restaurants will use canola oil in anything that's fried. We do know that non-fried food's better, but even in the salad dressings, it's often a blend of olive oil and canola oil. And just being aware of that, and there's not much you can do about that unless you want to bring like olive oil in your purse, which I don't know, why not? We have an insulin pump there. I'm just kidding. But restaurants is a big source, but the salad dressings, marinades, a lot of processed products. I love these wild fish salmon burgers from Costco, and they do have canola oil in them. Do I still buy them? I do, but I don't make them a staple every single day to eat. Earth Balance, again, when there's marketing claims, something that's heart healthy, or I'm trying to think what the labels are in there, it's promoted as healthy because of the content of mono unsaturated fat to saturated fat. And according to the Heart Association, that's a better thing, but they're not considering the omega-3 ratio to omega-6 fats. And the American diet, the ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s should be 1-to-1, 1-to-2. And the standard American diet, even when it's a healthy whole grain breakfast, typical sandwich, lunch with vegetables, and a pasta dish with protein and vegetables, the ratio is 1-to-20. And 1-to-20, a ratio of omega-3s to omega-6s, inflammation is just firing in our body. And things to squash that is to remove the man-made oils, but also to take an omega-3 supplements or eat those wild caught fish and seafood, algae, flax seeds, and chia seeds. But it's just really hard on the body. It can be expressed as anything from gut damage. It fuels bad gut bacteria, those man-made oils. It can raise insulin resistance and things like blood pressure and cholesterol as well.
Thanks, Kelly. And I think even those examples of how we can make our own dressing as opposed to buying dressings. Besides olive oil, correct me if I'm wrong, besides olive oil, you know, the option of avocado oil, grapeseed oil, would those be in the same, like,
Great question.
favorable compared to vegetable oils?
Yeah, I think Chef Ryan might not like what I'm about to say, but grapeseed oil has a wonderful smoke point, but the omega-6 ratio is so high. The fats I encourage is avocado oil. It's really good. It takes on the flavor of the food, so it doesn't have a taste. I do that when I roast fish or vegetables. Avocado oil. I also use olive oil, coconut oil, and then fats from proteins. Let that be pasture-raised bacon, grass-fed beef, and so forth. So coconut, avocado, olive are the main go-tos, I would say. And I do have a handout. I tell clients, you know, print this off and put it in your pantry. But it says the ideal fats to use, cold versus hot, and then the fats to really avoid. But those to avoid is, did a man make it? Avoid it. For butters, a way better alternative is Kerrygold butter. I love that butter. It's grass fed. The omega-3 ratio is more favorable, but more so the vitamin A, D, E, and K, those are the fat soluble vitamins, are so much better in grass fed butter. Same thing with conventional beef versus grass fed beef. They're completely different. One can help heart health, one can hurt it. So I went on a small tangent there, but hopefully I
Oh,
answered.
good. No, thank you. And then there was another comment or question about, you know, the is going low carb to restrictive, and then shortly after you shared your personal experience. So I thank you for that. Just recognizing that it can be attractive in the diabetes community to go lower carb, but just even in your own experience, how you found that those restrictions cut out too many of our fruits, vegetables, beans, you know, the sources of, yes, carbohydrate, but also the importance of getting fiber in, and just how that actually damaged your gut health by being too restrictive. So thank you for sharing your own story there. Can you address bone broth
Yep.
and specific to helping with leaky gut?
So bone broth, the research is interesting. You'll have people like Dr. Axe and I want to say Dr. Carrie Shanahan. That's not the right last name, but she wrote the book, The Bone Broth. They will unload more and more recommendations how bone broth is very anti-inflammatory. And I agree, but then you'll find another camp of people and say there's absolutely no studies. It's actually associations, not causations. Overall, it's a nourishing food, and it's very bioavailable protein. So that's a bonus. It is good for bones, skin, joints. And I do encourage it, but the research on nutrition is tricky. Most research, 70% of nutrition research is funded by the industry. And when it's funded by the industry, there's an 8-fold increase that'll be favorable to that product. So every time you see, you know, don't eat red meat because it causes cancer, or I'm just thinking that because that's a very common one people ask about, or eat more chocolate because it will help with cholesterol. They're studies that are being told into a food story, and there's a lot of potential bias behind it. I remember when I moved back from Australia, it was like, don't eat red meat. And that's 2012. Like, no one eat red meat. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. I just kind of like evolved to kind of a paleo way of eating. You know, if we eat whole real food, shouldn't our body recognize it? And I looked at the details of that study that a lot of the media came out of, and it was the two groups of people eating slightly differently. And those who had more red meat, it was pepperoni on pizza. And I don't think pepperoni on pizza is going to help anybody's health. But now I forget the beginning of the the question. I'm going on such a tangent. But bone broth is very healthy. It's hypoallergenic, meaning most people tolerate it very well. And it does have the component of L-glutamine naturally in it. So it'll help provide that little bit of neosporin effect on the gut lining.
Awesome. And that was another question, was do you have a recommendation about how much L-glutamine would be recommended?
If someone, let's say they're doing a triathlon and training really hard and really hard training season, you can have up to 10 grams a day. But I usually recommend, 2 to 4 grams twice a day. for people who are trying to heal their gut or prevent cravings. And you can just proactively, like, I have so many cravings. You can go mix in some, it's usually a powder, and I prefer the powder into, an electrolyte drink. And it'll take the craving away, or dull it quite a bit, but up to 10 grams, I would say, for training. And there was something else I wanted to add to that. I forget, it'll come to me.
Yeah. We'll add one more question, and then we do have a record of this chat. So if your specific question didn't get addressed, we'll circle back with you and pick Kelly's brain as well. But do you have any final recommendations around a prebiotic and a probiotic, whether brand or quantity? That would be something we'd like to hear your.
Absolutely. For autoimmune conditions, I've really liked the research I'm seeing on soil-based probiotics. They tend to be a little pricier, but they have a stronger likelihood of implanting in the colon and helping to proliferate the good bacteria from the bad bacteria as well. One research shows, is it the type 1 diabetes that causes bad bacteria, or is it bad bacteria that causes the type 1? And research is showing both. So one thing to note there is high blood sugar feeds bad bacteria. And no, it's very hard to have flatline CGMs every day, all day. So again, there's more importance for us to really nurture gut health. But for good prebiotics and probiotics, you want to just make sure it's something that's third-party tested. There was a study in 2016, I want to say it was 2016, and it was done by the New York's Attorney General, and they went into GNC, Vitamin Shop, Target, and Walgreens and grabbed, I believe it was vitamin C off the shelf. Sorry, I don't have the exacts to this. They grabbed the bottles of vitamin C off the shelves of all of those well-known stores, and none of those bottles had what was on the label. Some of those bottles even had things like soy or egg in them, which are very high allergens to many. So you always want to make sure when you buy supplements that they have a third-party testing statement on it. One seal of approval is NSF to look for. My favorite brands are Standard Process is a great one, Designs for Health, Thorne, and Pure Encapsulations, and Metagenics. Those are usually what I use mostly with clients. But yeah, look for that third-party approval, because the supplement industry, like protein powders, there's good and bad, and the regulations are the wild, wild west.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. On really, I feel inspired, and I know you've inspired our community to really think more about food rather than food products and variety and all of those wonderful tips and tricks. We really appreciate you joining us this morning, and thank you so much. It's been a wealth of knowledge, so thank you.
Awesome. With the chat, since it's still recording, do you want me to go through and just answer questions as I see them in there, or how do you want me to?
Yeah, we can keep, because we're keeping this open anyway. If you want to just run through that for anyone else who wants to honor your break, you can log off, log back on, you can stay on and just turn your camera off. It's completely up to you. Yeah, I think if you're game, that would be awesome, Kelly. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm fine not taking a break, even though, I'm building insulin resistance, but I'm fine.
You got the day, right? All right. Well, next up is about 10 minutes away. We'll have Chef Ryan on. So we got about a 10-minute break. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.